welcome back to our next sewing adventure, and today it is the Keanu Backpack by UhOh Creations. This is the add-on version that takes away the back laptop pocket. It's a great size backpack. It'll fit everything you need for a day out, and it has a really great shape to it. It's got a few different inclusions that you don't often see in backpack patterns. It has this gorgeous front pleat, a beautiful big front pocket that extends all the way down, and this really interesting gusset shape. It curves. It just gives it a beautiful silhouette. And the back, it's held on by a nice feature strap support and those straps as well. It's almost a signature strap. I love it. Nice and durable and strong with the webbing. The center compartment opens up wide, really, really wide. I mean, how good's that? You will not lose anything in that one. And the bag is turned using those two zipper pockets. So it's really interesting the way it happens. I don't think I've done a backpack pattern that turns the right way out in this method. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, she has just done a mashup between a couple of her patterns, the Keanu, and adding on a little front pocket as well. But I highly recommend giving this one a go on its own as well, because you will love it. You will love carrying it around. It is a fun backpack pattern. So I'll link up the pattern in the descriptions below. Go and grab your copy, get your fabric sorted, and let's get sewing. Welcome back to our next tutorial, and today we have the Keanu Backpack by UhOh Creations. Now this is the modified add-on version where it takes out that laptop pocket at the back. It's a fun little backpack, lots of interesting shapes and designs going along with it, and it has plenty of storage, which is what we like. Now in terms of materials today, for my lining I have the diamond embossed canvas from Sophisticated in Singapore. It's waterproof, it's easy to use, but it's got a nice thickness to it. Again, from Sophisticated, I have this waterproof canvas. It's polyester base, very hard wearing. And then I have some navy blue vinyl. This is just going to be for my base gusset and a couple of little pieces and here and there. All right, so that is our materials. Let's move on to our hardware and stabilizers. All right, let's talk hardware and stabilizers. So for hardware, there's really not much that you need. You have some zipper tape, you have a couple of tri-glides. I'm using some silver ones, and 4 or 5 zipper pulls. At the moment I've only got 4 of these ones, and then I'll find a different one for my interior zipper pocket. Because we're not using that laptop pocket, we do need 2 less. Alright, in terms of stabilizer, I've got a mix. That's probably the best way to describe this one, a mix of stabilizers. So for the back of my front flap, I've got some fusible fleece that have already adhered to it. For the strap support, I'm going to pop on my Decaville, and then we are going to trim this and surround it on the rear. For my straps, I've gone a nice padded foam, nice and squishy. And for most of it, I have from Sophisticated a 1.5mm light padded foam. Very, very lightweight, but still has plenty of support. For the back of my bag, I've gone a smackdown foam or a self-adhesive foam. So what I need to do first is go ahead and baste these bits of foam to my corresponding pattern pieces. So you might need to do that. If you do, let's get going. So let's start basting what we need to be basting. If you need to stabilize or interface your fabric, go ahead and do so. But otherwise, basting's up first. All right, we've done a bit of preparation. So I have basted my foam to the relevant pieces all the way around, including my straps as well and the lining. Now, in regards to the strap support, I have drawn lines as to where we will be folding that to. But honestly, I don't trust my double-sided tape to hold it long enough. So I'm going to wait till the last minute to apply my double-sided tape and fold those over. Now you can also go ahead and mark the centers of pretty much all your pieces. So the main pieces, mark the centers, your zippers. Just a little bit of preparation now will also help in a long way. So to find the centers of things, just fold them in half, chase it up to the center, and you can either just pop a little snip there, or you can pin it or chalk even, just a way so we can recognize those pieces. All right, now that we've done that, I think it's time to get sewing. So let's start off with our straps and handles. So go ahead and grab your webbing, your strap anchors, and we'll get started. Okay, first up in our sewing is our strap anchors. So we have our diagonal pieces here. We want to pop those right sides together, then just clip along one of the shorter sides. All right, might as well do the same for both at the same time. Let's just do that. So clipping along the short sides. We're going to go back to our sewing machine and we are going to sew along our short clipped edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So go ahead and do that and back stitch top and bottom, and then come straight back here and we'll continue on with our strap anchor. Okay, there's those two pieces sewn together. Now we're going to get our strap. So this is our bottom strap. It's 18 inches long. I'm just going to quickly just singe over the area where I'm going to sew. This is about 2 inches in. Sometimes just giving it a little bit of extra singe with a lighter can really help. So we're going to pop this in, and you want about 2 inches showing at the top. Butt it right up against that line you just sewn. About 2 inches showing on top. Doesn't have to be 100% exact, but close enough. All right, clip along there. Maybe another clip there for good luck. Same with that one. About the same, 2 inches or so. Yep. All right, there we go. Back to the machine now. We're going to sew along this top edge here where the strap's sticking out at that 2 inches with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So do the same for both of those. All right, I've sewn across the top there with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'm just going to trim off that corner on an angle, so just the vinyl, and I might just reduce down one side of my seam allowance. Now we do not want to trim the webbing. We want to keep that the full length sticking out. That's going to help provide extra support because it'll get sewn into the seam. So turn this right sides out. Just give it a pull if you've got something pokey to push that corner out. Then grab it and just gently but firmly push that corner out. And just roll that seam allowance between your fingers until you're happy with how it's sitting. I'm just going to clip it along there and there as well. Perfect. All right. Same with the other one. Turn it right sides out, pull on that webbing a little bit. And poke out that corner. Okay. Now I'm going to top stitch these from opposite angles. So basically mirror image it, because my top stitch thread always looks better than my bobbin thread. We are going to base this raw edge closed, top stitch 1/8 of an inch seam allowance away from the finished edges, and then repeat the process a 1/4 inch in, another 1/4 inch in. So you'll get a few lines of stitching going through. So go ahead and do the same for both of those. Next up, we'll start to tackle our strap handle. Okay, there is my strap anchors all sewn up, and as you can see I mirror image them so my bobbin threads on the back and top stitch showing from the right on each side. Okay, now we're just going to trim that excess webbing and the excess strap anchor corners. There we go. Okay, we're going to pop those aside for now. Next up is our handle. Now, as usual, I'm doing things a little bit differently. I'm backing my handle with webbing. So this one, you'd have your traditional, I'm going to say double fold. All I've done is cut my strip at 8 inches by 2 inches, folded those long edges towards the center, and just use some hemming tape to hold them together. I just want to have that two-tone look. I just like the idea of it, really. So now I'm just going to get some double-sided tape. So apart from doing the two-tone look, process is the same, that we are going to top stitch this with our sewing machine. There we go. All right, back to the machine. Top stitch a 1/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. Now, once you've done that, we're going to move on with our backpack straps. So you're going to need your strap pieces, your exterior and lining, your foam, if you haven't actually already done that, and your longer pieces of webbing. And there is my handle all sewn up. Now we're going to pop this one aside with the strap bottoms while we move on with our main backpack straps. So here we go. I've got my exterior. I've basted the foam onto the back of those, and I have my lining. Now you can go the exterior fabric for all sides of this, up to you on that one. I'm happy with one and the other. Now we're going to get our webbing, and we want to place it just along the bottom of one of our straps. I don't think it really matters whether it's lining or exterior. And we want to have about 1 inch overhanging there. So you'll notice at the end of the strap there's a little bit of a straight edge there. Just center that webbing along that straight edge with 1 inch overhanging. I'm just going to clip it in place. Same for this one. There we go. Okay, back to the machine quickly and just baste along those bottom 2 edges. I've basted the strap right onto the end there. Now I just want to pin this webbing up the strap. You don't have to do this, but I have a feeling I will catch it in my stitches. So obviously strap is curved, webbing is straight. We want to avoid getting that caught somewhere in our stitches because that would mean a whole lot of unpicking. And I don't have time for that. I don't have the patience for that probably. That's probably more like it. Okay, so once you have done that and you made sure it's out of the way, what we're going to do is grab our back piece of our strap, whether that's lining or exterior, pop it right sides together, and then just clip up the strap. So just matching the edges there. They should, in theory, be the same size, unless you like to get a bit creative with your cutting like I do occasionally. So clipping up. Now the process is going to be the same for both. If you haven't attached your foam and you're going to be attaching it later, you may consider, rather than leaving the opening up the top like I'm about to, you might want to leave a larger opening along the side, but that is entirely up to you. See what you think is best, and it depends on the thickness of the foam that you're using. If you're using something really, really thick, then it might be a bit hard. Okay, so once you have clipped both of your straps, we're going to take it back to the machine and we're going to sew down the long edges around the bottom and up the other long edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to leave this top section open for turning. So like I said, if you're using a really thick foam that you're going to insert later, you might want to leave a big turning gap at the side. But otherwise, do as I say. Down, across the bottom and up to the top, back stitching quite thoroughly at the top. All right, do the same for both of those. Okay, both of my straps are sewn. Now you probably saw in the last video, I did go back and forth over this strap top a few times just for extra reinforcement. Now, we'll trim those seam allowances down just a little bit, just to really help those curves. If you don't want to do it, don't. But I'm just going to really take just the edge off. This is pretty much similar to putting notches into the fabric. Now, when you get close to the bottom, we do not want to trim our webbing, so please avoid doing that. So go around and do that. We'll skip to the next bit so you don't have to watch me struggle with these clippers. So go ahead and do that. Trim your seam allowances down, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about turning these right side out. So we'll start from the top. Just beware if you have pinned like me that you might poke yourself with a pin. Be careful. Be very, very careful. So just take your time. I'll pull the pins out as I go though. So if I hadn't pinned it, I could probably just grab the end of the webbing and pull it through. But because I have pinned it, that's not going to be the case. And that's okay. We have all the time in the world. So we're just going to slowly, there's that pin, pull these out, just bit by bit. Just take your time to slowly feed them. You don't want to yank on them because sometimes you can risk ripping those stitches, and again then you'll have to turn it right side back in, and it's just doubling up the process, so we don't want to do that. Okay, so when we get towards the end, you can grab something long and pokey, so a chopstick would be perfect, even the end of a wooden spoon, just to push out the bottoms there. But this is actually coming out all right. It helps when you baste that the foam in. Often I'll use stick-on foam for this, but it just trying to turn with stick-on foam is hard. It is hard work because you've got to worry about it sticking, and then sometimes it comes off and you've got to start the process again. So this is probably one of the better options to do, really. All right, I think I have one more pin maybe. We'll find out when we get closer. Yep, all right, almost there. Yep, I can feel that last pin. Almost got me. There it is. Okay, all the way out. This is where get your chopstick, wooden spoon, anything you got that's long and pointy but not too sharp, or just roll that seam allowance out between your fingers. Now if you can press your fabric, go ahead and do so. Just beware of your webbing, because if you're using polyester it can melt. Once you're happy with it and sitting all nicely, back to the machine and top stitch around the perimeter of your strap with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. We're going to repeat the process for both of our straps. My straps are now top stitched and looking really, really good. Let's prepare to put on our ladder lock buckles. So on the wrong side, or the back side of my webbing, I've made a mark 1.5 inches from this seam down. We're going to get our webbing and going from the back to the front. So we've got the right side of our ladder lock buckle facing up. Go up through that second hole. Over, well actually what we'll do, we'll pull it up until we find our 1.5 inch marking, and just sort of make it level with that bar, and just hold it in place with your hand. Get the other end up over that center bar through the top hole and just pull it. So you should be able to see that chalk line there. That's my 1.5 inch mark, and I'm just going to pin it in place. And I'll repeat the process again in case I confused anyone. I probably confused myself. So 1.5 inch marking on the back side of the webbing. Get the webbing, go up through the middle there, slide it up until you can see that 1.5 inch mark just in line with that center bar, over the top of the bar, through the top hole, and then we're just going to pin it. So initially, the first time I did this, I believe it was the Andy backpack that we used the same technique. I'll admit I confused myself so badly. I was really reading too far into it, and it isn't that hard. It really shouldn't be that hard. Okay, so now we are going to pin our webbing or double-sided tape, whatever you want to do, to our strap. Follow the line of the curve. I think that's my best advice to you, and take your time. Your webbing can bend. It can go around curves. You just got to coax it and make sure that you're applying plenty of pins or tape to hold it in place. And just try and keep it center of the strap. Looking good. And up to the top. Okay. I'm not surprised I have a bit extra. I know I cut it a bit too long, but that's okay. So there we go. Looking good. So what we're going to do now is top stitch the webbing. 1/8 inch seam allowance, go down the long side, come down, then finish about 1/2 inch from the top of your ladder lock buckle, or as close as you can really. So you want to be able to do it so your foot's not going to get caught up on this. So get as close as you can and then back up the other side. Repeat the process for both. So go ahead and pin all your webbing up and then sew it up. And there are my straps. I really love this technique. I think it turns out such a beautiful looking strap, and you just know it's going to be really strong with that extra webbing support. Alright, next we're going to start to work on our exterior front panel. So go ahead and grab your exterior front panel pieces. So that is your exterior piece, your lining piece, and your 18-inch zipper. So go grab those and then come back and we'll get going. Okay, our exterior front. So this is probably a little bit differently shaped to what you'd expect, but it does have a pleat in it, which we will do in a later step. First though, we've got to attach our zipper. So what we're going to do is get our zipper, find your center point, and we want to attach or base this to our exterior. Now, you can clip it. I'm not going to. I prefer just to start on one side. I know my zipper is long enough. I'm going to start on one side unclipped and just sort of manipulate the zipper as I go around the tighter corners. So if you want to clip it or double-sided tape it, go for it. Otherwise, let's go pop our zipper foot on our machine and base this with 1/8 to 1/4 inch seam allowance, whatever looks good to you, all the way around this top cutout. Alright, there is my zipper basted in place, and now we want to get our lining. So it's the same size, right sides together, and line it up. So if you've marked your center points, great, you can line up your center points and work your way back from there. I didn't. Even though I told you to, I didn't. I'll admit it. But we're just going to clip it around. It should all fit because it is the same piece. Just slowly and carefully matching up those edges. It can be a little bit tricky with the zipper. So what we might do actually, just to make things a little bit easier, is actually separate the zipper tape because we're going to have to join it up anyway. Sometimes just reducing the bulk there can be really handy. So just go around, clip it together, make sure you're happy with the alignment of everything. Try not to stretch the fabric either way. So once you have clipped it all in place, matched up those edges, we're going to sew this now with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. So I know it seems a bit big, but trust me on this one. 1 centimeter seam allowance to join those two pieces together along the zipper. Okay, there we go. So I did have to just go over that center bit because my stitches got a little bit messed up. I'm not sure how or why. Now we can trim all this area and then you just need to apply some fray check to your zipper tape. Now I'm not going to cut my zipper tape. I don't know if I trust it enough, to be honest. I think it's great quality until I cut into it, then I feel like it might not hold. So what I'm going to do is slowly and carefully just trim away the exterior and lining fabric. Now I undid, or I removed, that's a good word for it, removed my basting stitches that were holding my zipper tape and exterior together. So all I'm going to do is go around and just snip this off carefully. I'll do the same with the lining. You choose what you want to do. If you are confident in cutting into your zipper tape and just using some fray check on it, then go for it. Otherwise, do as I do, and then meet me back here when you're done. That's now trimmed. Not the neatest job, but look, it'll do. Now we are going to flip these so they are wrong sides together. I'm just going to go around and I'll pin the bottom and side edges just so I know that it's all going to align. We will be needing to baste these later, so we might as well get them together now. So if you can't pin, just use some clips just to align them. I really love this fabric. Every time I look at it, I sort of pick up on a different tone. Right now I can really see that purple shining through. It's gorgeous. And I'll admit, I haven't watched all of the Star Wars. I probably can easily say I've maybe watched 2. But I love the fabric. I love the prints that they come out with. It's beautiful. They're so fun. Alright, anyway, sidetracked. Pinning around the sides, join it together, and then if you can press it, do, because we need to top stitch along this zipper, but we want to make sure that everything is sitting nice and neatly and everything's aligned. We don't want it going askew. We want it to stay all in alignment as I try and find a nice sharp pin, not my blunt ones that I use all the time. There, looking good. I'll admit that zipper went in easier than I thought. I think I thought it might be harder to get around that corner, but it really wasn't. Okay, so then we come to our fabric near the zipper. Just roll the seam out with your hands. Like I said before, if you can press it, great. If not, just pulling on it should be enough, and then pinning it. This is why I did the outside as well, so I can make sure that that's all in alignment too. So pin around, make sure you're happy with it, press it if you want or can. Once you've done that and you're happy with all of it, 1/8 inch top stitch around the zipper edge and then baste the remaining edges. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll look at the next step. Right, there is my bottom front panel done. So the zipper has been sewn on and I've top stitched it. Now we need to look at our flap. Now you can reattach your zipper tape together and do it that way. I'm just going to keep it separate for now. I'm going to go for gold a little bit with this one. So we have our exterior front flap that has been stabilized with our fusible fleece. I have my zipper and I have marked the halfway point on this one. It'll be hard to see. There's my halfway point and my halfway point on my front flap. So it's going to be fairly rough. I'm not going to say I'm going to stick to it 100%. But what we need to do is pretty much the same process though as we did for our front bottom, is baste our zipper tape to our exterior first, then we're going to attach it to our lining. So I'm just going to briefly clip this. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not really looking for perfection. I just want to know that that halfway point is there and that my zipper tape will reach the edges, which it will. Alright, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to use my zipper foot to base this zip to my front top panel. Then I'll come back and we'll talk about attaching our lining. There's my zipper basted onto my exterior. Now we're going to get the lining and we're going to pop them right sides together. Just find my clips. You can start by lining up the centers. I like to be different, so I'm going to line up those edges and just clip around. Again, much the same process as the front bottom. We want to just get those zippers installed. It looks, I want to say this bag probably looks more difficult than it is. Like, it has that real edge to it where you think there's going to be some techniques there that might be challenging, but those instructions really do break it down nice and easy. So hopefully this tutorial will do the same as well. Okay, so clip around. Just make sure you're happy with how it's all sitting. might just need to sort of flex your zipper. So like I said before, your option was to reattach your zipper. So put your zipper pulls on, reattach it to the front bottom and do it that way. I don't see the harm in doing it this way, to be honest. I find it probably just a little bit easier to handle when it's separate pieces. But that is just me, so you do you. Figure out what's going to work for you. Okay, once you've clipped it on, we're going to go back to the machine and we're going to sew around the clipped edge with a 1 centimeter seam allowance again. So go ahead and do that. And then we'll look at clipping our edges, reducing our seam allowance, much like we did with that front bottom. So you can do that. Sew with the 1 centimeter seam allowance. Use pinking shears just to reduce that seam allowance around there. Wary of cutting through your zipper. And then we'll move on from there. Okay, there is my top flap. I trimmed the seam allowances, not very neatly, but I did avoid cutting into the zipper on this one. So I think I said last time, I'd rather just not cut into the zipper personally. I'd rather keep it complete, and I'm fine cutting into the fabric. I know that'll hold. Okay, that actually looks really good. I shouldn't sound surprised. That looks great. Okay, back to the machine. Once you turned it out, just pull on the seams a little bit, press it if you want to. Then back to the machine and just top stitch around that edge with that 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then you can baste across the top. After you've done that, grab your bottom panel and a couple of zipper pulls, pop in one from each end. That way it'll be a 2 zipper opening. So go ahead and do that. And when we come back, we'll start to talk about how we're going to pleat this front pocket. And there is my top flap attached. So I've popped both my zipper pulls on. I did have a little bit of extra height on the flap, but not worried. I know that the front top bit will take up that discrepancy. Now let's work on our pleats. So we have our center marking. Then we need to make a mark 1 inch either side of that. So center, 1 inch either side. We'll flip it over to our lining. We'll start with one side. We're going to pinch on our left hand marking and bring it, fold it, so that marking now touches the center. And clip. Then we'll do the same for the other side. Pinch on the marking, fold, so it meets the center. And then we'll clip. So I'll show you the difference between the lining and the main. So lining has the fold going in, and on the main side, it has a fold on the exterior. Once you've done that, just go back to your machine and baste across there just to hold that pleat in place. If you want to press it, you can. Otherwise, when you get back, grab your lining bottom, which will be the same size now as that. Okay, next up, we have our front piece. Now with our pleat, I just pressed it really quickly, and then we have our lining bottom. So this is the back one. I have my foam basted to the rear of this one. We're going to get this one right sides up, then pop our exterior also right sides up on top. I'm going to start by lining up the bottom, just clipping in place there, and then I'm just going to chase it around. So just clipping the edges, going around and clipping together. Perfect. Okay. Continue on. Like I found, oh there you go. So I probably just need to pull my top main piece just a little bit, just to really open up those zippers, get them to lay flat so the width matches as well. Again, if it's a little bit off, don't stress. Clip it and then just go ahead and baste all the way around. And then once we've done that, we're going to need our front top piece to finish this front panel off. I basted that all around, so now we have our front pocket. Very cool. We just need to attach our front top. So we're going to get these right sides together. You can line up the center points or just line up the edges, whichever works for you. They should be the same width or close enough to the same width. If it's a few mil out, then it really doesn't matter, to be honest. There's no point in stressing about these things. We'll just make it work. All right, clip across. Once you've done that, back to the machine. Sew across the top there with that 1 centimetre seam allowance. Okay, that seam is sewn. I did just remove some of my foam after I sewed that 1 centimetre seam allowance just to reduce the bulk. So now we're going to fold this top panel up. Seam allowance still points up, and we shall top stitch through this top panel with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So you can go ahead and do that. Now also is the opportunity, if you want to add your logo tag or something here, by all means go for it. I'll have a think about that. I might not, I'm not sure. So go ahead, top stitch, logo tag if you want it, and then we're going to get on with our back panel. Alright, back with another night of sewing, and we are moving on with our back panel. So we have our back panel, we have a vertical line, and then we have 2 horizontal lines, one 4 3/8 of an inch from the top, the other 3.5 inches from the top. We're going to focus on this 3.5 inch mark initially. We have our straps. Now just lay them out as you're going to have them on, so the curve goes outwards. Then I like to flip them up. It's just the way my brain works. I always like to lay them out as they're going to go on first and then pin them. So we're going to line them up along that 3.5 inch mark and meet them in the center there. So follow the angle out. You can either clip them. I'm just going to pop a pin in them. Again, the beauty of using canvas, if I can get that pin in. Easier said than done on that one. Now I still haven't applied my foam to the back because I do like a stick-on foam, but this one I've got from this particular brand. It isn't a sophisticated one, but it does gum up my needles, so I'm avoiding putting it on to the last moment. So once you have either pinned or clipped in place, go ahead and baste this on, but you don't just have to do 1 row of basting stitches. In fact, many basting stitches is allowed on this one. So pretty much back and forth with basting stitches, extending no further up than 1.5 inches. So maybe just measure, say, 1 inch, and just go back and forth as many times as you want to really secure those handles in place. When you come back, we're going to need that top strap support. Now I haven't done this yet, but what I'm going to go do is I've drawn the line of where my stabilizer should be. I didn't cut it very accurately apparently. And I'm just going to fold this back edge wrong sides together along this line. Now, straight edge is fairly easy. Curved edges can be hard. So when we get to the top point there, it's worth cutting little notches into the edge, say 1/4 inch down or so, and actually taking little triangles out. I'll do that, I'll start cutting it, then I'll come back and show you how I'm going to stick it on. But first, go ahead and baste those. My straps have been basted on many times, so just went back and forth, and it's really nice to make sure that they're secure. It's a great way to actually do this pattern. Okay, now when it comes to our top strap support, this is what I've done so far. I cut off the sides at a chamfer. I just checked that this was going to come to a nice point. So you don't have to do that. You can just fold it over, but because I'm using vinyl, I want to reduce the bulk where I can. Then around these outer curves, I've just cut notches. That way when we pull it in, it's going to sit nicely. Well, that's the hope anyway. All I'm going to do is pop on some double-sided tape. Get rid of the fluff. Double-sided tape pretty much on that line that I drew earlier, where if I had cut my stabilizer accurately, then this would fold neatly over it. So probably my best bet, or best tip, just cut your stabilizer better than I did, really. Alright, peeling the back off, I'll start with the straight edge. That's got to be easier, right? See, again, with the double-sided tape backing. What is going on? Alright, I'm just going to fold those edges in along that straight edge. Really press down and hope for the best that it's going to stick. But knowing my luck and knowing this, I'm just going to quickly pop some clips on for now. I will be applying some more double-sided tape in a second, but I wanted to do this first. Now that the straight edge is done, I'll tackle probably the more challenging side, which is the curves. So just peeling off the backing here. Okay, let's start from the top. So this is almost a straight edge along there. Same thing, I'm just trying to find my smaller clips to hold it in place so they don't get in my way. And this is where those little notches really help, because it allows you to kind of pivot the fabric. Now you might find it easier if you're using a woven or something a bit thinner than vinyl, but when have I ever gone easy? This is going to be the challenging bit. So around the corner, making sure that point is nice and neat. And the good thing about if you cut notches, it sort of allows you to overlap ever so slightly. I cut my notches no bigger than 1/4 of an inch, probably even slightly less. So just move it around, reposition it until you're happy with it. Have a look from the right side. You will expect to get some sort of little angles in there, but just reposition it until you're happy. So go ahead and do the same thing for all of that. Then once you've done that, I'd be recommending putting some more double-sided tape just over the raw edge here for 2 reasons. To hold these edges down, and then also when it comes time, we're going to stick this on here shortly to stitch it, so that's going to hold it in place. So go ahead and do that and then come back. There we go, my top strap support with tape holding it nice and still, hopefully. And then from the right side, look, it's not perfect, but that's okay. That really is okay. All right, so what we're going to do now, I'm just going to, I said it's okay, and then I have to reposition it because otherwise I'll freak out about it. All right, peeling off your backing off your double-sided tape. I did put just one line in the middle just so it holds it still in the section there. So just go around, peel it off. If you have bigger double-sided tape, well, good on you. I am still waiting on my 1 centimeter tape to turn up. I like to have a mix of 1/4 inch and 1 centimeter. And if I can get 1/8 of an inch tape, that is even better, but it comes down to what's available. Last couple. Okay, once you have peeled off the backing, here we go, grab your back part again. We're going to line up with that lower line now, that 4.5 inch. And I've just made little chalk marks on this support just so I can line it up nice and straight. But it's as easy as that. Okay, once you've done that, you're happy with it, back to the machine. We're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch around and then 1/4 of an inch around, just to hold it nice and firm. So go ahead and do the 2 lines of top stitching. All right. My top strap anchor is now sewn on. That's a really fun way to finish the straps. I like that. Now we just need to attach our bottom ones. So I've made marks 1 1/4 inch from the bottom. We lay these on top. I'm just trying to figure out which one my good side or my top stitching side is. Line up that bottom point with that 1 1/4 inch marking. Just pop on a couple of clips. Do the same for the other side. Yep. All right. Go ahead, back to your machine, base both of those on, and then we'll put together our straps just so they're going to stay out the way. There's my bottom strap anchors sewn on. Now, I'm just going to firstly unclip those. I just clipped my straps up out of the way before. I do like how they fold down. All right, we are going to get our bottom strap. We're going to thread it through the middle. So above our little serrated section, up and then over through that bottom hole. So that little serrated section will help hold this and clamp it down. So when someone's wearing it, it won't pull out of place. Same with the other side. Up through the middle, up and over, through that bottom hole, pull. All right, and then once you've done that, I'm going to take this back. I'm actually going to 1, 2, triple fold, because I find the metal ladder locks are actually got bigger holes than the plastic ones. For me anyway. And again, 1, 2, and 3. I'll take this back to my machine. I'm just going to stitch along those just to really secure that fold. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and gather our exterior zipper gusset pieces. So that's the exterior lining of both front and back, and our big zipper with zipper pulls. Now our back is done, onto our zipper gusset. So we have our front and our back. I like to line them up, follow the curve, but you can always refer to the paper pattern piece for the zip side. But a zip will go in between these pieces. Now, so you're going to need a big length of zipper. I haven't measured it, I haven't cut it, because I prefer just to hold it on, baste it in place, and then cut it at the end. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and baste it to the zipper side of my front panel first, just with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So zipper right side down, so coil side down to the right side of our front zipper gusset. There's my zipper basted onto my front gusset exterior. Now get our lining, pop it right sides together. I did just mark my centers as well, just to make sure everything lines up nicely. Flip along, matching those raw edges. So right side of lining down, sandwiching that zipper in between. Go ahead and clip along in place. It should fit, if it fit your exterior, it should fit your lining. That's the idea anyway, given they are cut the same size. So this bag's a bit of a change for me because it's not a bound bag, it's a birth bag. So I'm very intrigued to see how it goes. But I think we shall be fine. Alright, end up, clip along, all the way along that raw edge. Then we're going to take it back to our machine, sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance this time, all the way along that curve. So go ahead and do that, and then come back and we'll talk about top stitching. I've sewn along that edge there with that 1 centimeter seam allowance, then I trimmed my foam back, and I just used my pinking shears to reduce my exterior seam allowance. Just so when we turn it out, because we're dealing with curves, we want to try and make it as smooth as possible. If we have too much bulk in the fabric, it can distort the edge. So it's best just to reduce the bulk where we can. Now, if you can press this, great. If not, just use your fingers, pull on the fabric a little bit. Now I'd recommend if you can pin it, great, especially when we're dealing with curves. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin it around. I won't bore you too much with it, just roll it to make sure that it is sitting nice and evenly as well. Try and reduce how much curviness there is in that zipper. Okay, imagine I've pinned it all. Once we've done that, we're going to top stitch along the edge closest to the zipper with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then baste the remaining 3 sides. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll talk about attaching it to our back zipper gusset. Okay, so my zipper has now been attached to my front gusset, and I've top stitched and basted. Now we just need to repeat the process with the back one. So we have our back gusset piece. We're going to be attaching this curved edge. So this straight edge is going to be attached to the back main panel. So what you're going to do, same process as before. Line up the center panels and clip, or center of the panels I should say. Clip, then it's probably good to go down to the other end. Line them up so it all matches in length, and clip, and then just feed it around. Now you are going to be working with opposite curves, so just take your time, and if you feel like you need to just cut little slits into this exterior panel, then do so by all means, as long as it matches. So once you've done that, baste with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, then grab your main, pop it on, sew with that 1 centimeter seam allowance, turn it out and top stitch. So the exact same process as we did with front, but just this time with the back. So go ahead and do that and then come back to here. Alright, there's my back zipper gusset attached. Now we just need to pop our handle on. So we have our center marking along our back gusset. Then we need to make a marking 1/2 inch either side of that. So these markings are 1 inch apart. Figure out which side of your handle, if you do have a preference, is going to face forward. But for me, I have gone that two-tone, so it's probably more imperative I figure it out. If you've just gone that classic double fold, then it won't really make any difference. So I'm just going to pop this to the outside of my marking and get a clip, pop it in place, and then we twist it around. Try not to over twist it, just make sure when it does sit up, it's going to be sitting flat. Alright, once you've done that, take it back to your machine and just baste across there. On your way back, you need to find your two base pieces, so your exterior and your lining. There's my handle basted on. Now we need to attach our base pieces. So I have my exterior and my lining. I'm just going to do it in one go because I'm feeling confident today. Okay, so we have our finished end of our top gusset. We're going to go exterior, right sides together with our exterior base, and then just clip across. Perfect. And then lining, right sides together with the lining side. Easy as that. And clip across as well. Just make sure it's all staying nicely in place if you need to. If you feel the need, baste your exterior first, then your lining. So go ahead and sew across there with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once you've done that, repeat with the other side of your gusset and base. So go for it, then come back and we'll discuss that next top stitching step. There's my base panel sewn to my gusset. Now before I turn it out, I'm just going to trim this on an angle. Same with this side. Okay. And then turn it right sides out. Now there is a bit of discrepancy in width between my upper panel and lower, and I'm not worried, to be honest. I'm just going to trim it to suit. That's all. So this now should be one big loop of fabric. What we're going to do now is take it back to our machine and we're going to top stitch along this edge through the base and the seam allowance with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So do the same for both sides. Just give it a pull to make sure it's sitting all flat. Then once you've done those 2 lines of top stitching, go ahead and baste each side together. If you're using a stabilizer for this, make sure if it isn't already in place to pop it in now. And once we've done that, we can start working on our lining panels. Alright, there is my gusset all done. So we have the top, we have the base, it has been top stitched and basted. So we're going to pop that one aside for now while we move on with our lining. So we're going to have 2 lining sides, that are exactly the same. So repeat this process for both of these. So we have our lining, we have our center line marked, and then a horizontal line marked at 4.5 inches from the top. We have our pocket facing, using probably the scrappiest bit of fabric I've ever seen, but we've drawn a line 3/4 of an inch from each long edge, 1 inch from the side. So this gives us a rectangle, and I'm just using those markings to line it all up. So mark the center and pin, and the other side as well. Pin it across. Now once that you have pinned that, we're going to take this back to the machine and as cleanly as you can, sew around that rectangle, making sure you're pivoting at each corner. And I like to use a slightly smaller stitch length. So like I said, we're going to repeat this again for the other lining main as well. So go ahead and do that twice and then come back here. There's my facings. They've sewn on for both of those the same. Now we're just going to cut through them. So what we're going to do is cut through the middle section and then do an angle either side. In the corners, we want to get as close as we can to the stitching without actually cutting the stitches. So to do this, I just bend it in half and then I do one confident cut in the middle. I'm using really sharp scissors. They are actually kitchen scissors, but I find they're really accurate right to the point. Sometimes scissors dull out right at the tip of them, and I'm not one to actually have the inspiration to go and get them sharpened, so I just sort of make do with what I got. Probably not the right message I should be saying, hey. Alright, so same on the other side. I'll just show you on one, so getting as close as we can to those stitches without cutting through. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to push this facing through to the back. So from the wrong side, pull it through. Can be a bit fiddly, especially if your fabric doesn't want to cooperate like mine. But what the idea is, we're going to pull it all the way through and really fold it just along that seam line and press it. So we want to press it with our iron. The idea is that we don't want to see any of the facing from the right side. We want it to be completely hidden behind. So go ahead, cut through the opening, turn it, and then take it over to your iron and press it as flat and as neatly as possible. Now when you get back, we're going to need more of our zipper tape and our zipper pocket linings. Okay, so my facings are now done. They're pressed to the back and I've just held them down with some hemming tape. Now just pop those aside for the moment while we actually put together our zipper pocket. So again, we're going to do this twice over. Same process for both. We have our zipper pocket linings and we have our zipper. I'm just going to pop this, so my zipper pocket lining is right sides up. I'm going to pop my zipper on right sides up, so wrong side of zipper to right side of pocket, and just clip across the top there. There we go. Now, easy as this, back to the machine and sew across the top there with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance or so, even a bit less. Do it on one side, then once you've done that one side, grab your other zipper pocket lining, pop the other end of your zipper tape on and sew across there. So go ahead and do the same for both sets of your zipper pockets. My zipper has been sewn to my zipper pocket linings. Now I'm just going to get some double-sided tape and just pop a line on each long edge of the zipper. So on one side, lucky, I could already tell I was going to run out, so I had one prepared. And then the other side, excuse the noise in the background, it's a teacher's strike at school, so I'm madly trying to get some stuff done while the kids are briefly entertained. So we're going to pull the backing off our double-sided tape, figure out which way you want your zipper pocket closing. I prefer mine closing to the left. Then we're going to get one of our main linings and just center it over that zipper. So make sure you have equal amount of zipper either side underneath. We need to catch the edge of our zipper tape when we sew this on, otherwise you risk your zipper pull just coming right off there. So just stick it down, adjust it as you need. You can peel it off and just rearrange it and move it around. You want it to be as straight as possible on this one. See, that side wasn't so great, so we just lift it off, reposition it, and try again. Okay, there we go. Now back to the machine, top stitch around all 4 sides of that rectangle and repeat the process for the other one as well. There's my zipper pocket. I have sewn around my zipper window. Now, all we need to do is flip it on over and fold down that top zipper pocket lining. Now, you'll notice that there is a discrepancy in height, and that's okay. Perfectly acceptable because that is the width of that zipper tape. So what we need to do is clip along here. I will trim the difference now. And again, same process for both of our zipper pockets. Doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be pretty much the same size. We need to close the sides of our zipper pocket, but not the bottom. We need to leave the bottom open for turning our bag. So to do this, I go from the exterior and I just fold back the sides. And then sew through the sides there with the 1 centimeter seam allowance, making sure that you backstitch quite thoroughly at the bottom. Repeat the process for both of your lining panels, and then it's actually time for our final assembly. Okay, now that we've finished our gusset, we've finished our panels, I think it's time to put it all together. So we're going to start with the back panel first, our gusset, and just one of our lining panels. Let's do that. All right, so just pop one of your lining panels and your front aside for the moment. So what we need to do, just a bit of preparation, is mark our top and bottom centers on all of our pieces. So that includes your exterior and also the centers, top and bottom of our gusset. So I've gone ahead. My mark isn't clear at all, actually, is it? I'll barely be able to see it. I don't know about you guys. Okay. Now this is a fairly, I'm not going to say unique construction, but it's really cool because it's not bound. It's a burst bag, and we use our zipper pocket to do so. So what we're going to also do right at this moment, open up your zipper pocket. That way it's open at the bottom for turning. So we're going to get our gusset. Remember, our back has the handle and it's got the narrower portion there. We are going to pop them right sides together, and all you need to do to begin with is just start pinning around. So to begin, do your top and bottom centers. Grab a whole heap of strong clips. So I have these silver clips here, which I believe are actually for hanging curtains. But the intent and purpose is irrelevant, because they are strong. They do not shift. So I love using them for this purpose. Now, if you need to snip into your gusset to get it around those corners, which I think I will anyway, then go for it. Just little snips, not forgetting our full seam allowance is 1 centimeter. So as long as the snips are, say, no bigger than 1/4 of an inch, then we should be fine. So I just start by pinning the centers and then doing a few clips mainly on those straight edges, because we know we don't need to worry about curves there. But then when we get to the curves, I get some sharp scissors and I just cut little notches, or little slits. I was going to get there eventually with that one. It's early, leave me alone. So just cut little cuts into this, just around those corners. That will help ease those corners in. I mainly focused on those bottom corners. The top ones aren't very sharp, so they should be okay. So just as you go around the corner, try and pull the gusset open ever so slightly to help open up, and that'll help get you around that corner nicely. I've found if I don't cut those little bits there, it does make it rather difficult. Alright. The only problem with these clips is the hooks. I could take the hooks off, and I probably should, but that's a lot of effort. And they get caught on each other, which is quite annoying. Alright, so we're going to go around, clipping everything in place. I'm not going to do the whole thing because that probably does not make for very entertaining viewing whatsoever. There we go. Okay, last one. So you're going to clip all the way around, including through the top, going around those curves at the top. And if you need to cut into your gusset, do so. Once you have clipped it in place, go ahead and baste at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So just that at the moment. Don't do your full 1 centimeter, just do a 1/4 of an inch around that entire thing. So go ahead and do that. And then when we come back, we'll talk about this lining panel. Okay, there is my exterior basted together, and it came together really well. That fit beautifully. Now, we are going to sort of fold this up, and we're actually going to attach our lining right on top of this. So lining, we're going to pop right sides together. So we're sandwiching the gusset in between our lining and our main. Start again by matching up those center points and clipping. Whoops. Got butterfingers today. Doesn't help it is freezing cold here. And I probably can't feel my fingers very well. Okay, so it probably will be a little bit trickier putting this lining on because you have to contend with the bulk of that gusset in between. But just, again, take your time, clip around, try and match up those edges as best you can. If it's a little bit off, don't stress. You have 1 centimeter seam allowance with this one to make it all fit. But it will sort of start to get a little bit tricky. As you can see, it starts to kind of bulge out a little bit. So just use as strong a clips as you have if you want to staple this. So use a stapler within that seam allowance, go for it, if that's what helps you get this one on. There's really no right or wrong answer here. Everyone has their different methods. I'm just trying to make sure that when I get to the corners, I'm sort of pushing any pleats or any folds away. You're dealing with a curved surface with your gusset, and then you're trying to attach something flat, so you might have issues there. Alright, so just go around. I'm definitely right-handed, aren't I? Go around and clip it. Just take your time with it. Push, pull, do what you need to. Like, you don't want it to be too tight, but it will fit. It should all be the same size. We cut the same size panels, so it should all fit. Alright, so same thing again. I'm just feeling where that gusset wants to fold and just sort of pushing it away. So, and then I'll use my clip just to hold it away. That way I've got my 1 centimeter seam allowance. I know that it will sit flat. Okay, so finish clipping all the way around. Take your time. Go around the curves. Now if you want to, when you go back to the machine, you can baste it first, and I think I might actually baste it first, and then sew with your 1 centimeter seam allowance. Take your time with it, like I just said. Go slow, get it all sewn nicely. If you need to pick your needle up and start again, if you're going around the corner, do so. Alright, so go ahead and do that and then report back here. Alright, there we go. That actually wasn't too hard, to be honest. So I have sewn around there with that 1 centimeter seam allowance, and I didn't end up basting. I just sewed it and it worked fine. Then I've trimmed the seam allowance. So on the corners I've used my pinking shears, and then just along the sides and bottom I've trimmed the seam allowance down just a little bit, probably not even half. But I haven't trimmed where my bottom strap anchors and my grab handle is. Now we get to turn it out. So let's take our time. It is okay to just take your time and do it bit by bit. So we don't want to pull too hard on it, and I also have to be wary. I've used the smackdown foam or stick-on foam for my back, and look, it doesn't always stay stuck. So I'd rather avoid having to turn it back inside out to redo it. So just slowly do it. I won't bore you and try and keep this in frame because it is really hard for me to do this without bringing it to my body. So turn it inside out or right side out, and then come back here, and then we'll talk about that next step. Okay, I admit it, I might be a changed woman. I might have been converted to that method because that actually really wasn't that hard. Like, the bulk of the foam didn't help me, but that's really neat. I actually love that. I don't think I've done it that way before, so look, that's new and different for me. Alright, so I'm not going to get excited because we still need to do our front. We'll just roll the seam out, just shape it, but look, we will be sewing the front to it, so it's going to get a little bit squished. What I might do though is finish off this zipper pocket, because we're done with this zipper pocket now. We don't need it again to turn. So I'm just going to get my seam allowance, about 1 centimetre. Doesn't have to be exact, as long as you're catching the stitches either side with some integrity. Fold the seam allowance in and clip along the top. Just go all the way along, clipping it as you go, and then we're just going to take it back to the machine, and we are going to edge stitch along the top of this zipper pocket, or along the edge of it, making sure that we're catching both sides. So use, I don't know, what, 1/8 to 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want about 1 centimetre going in, just so we make sure that we have enough fabric there to catch, and you want the stitches not to slip off the end. All right, so go ahead and sew across the top with there, and then come back and we'll talk about the last step of construction. There we go. I've sewn across the edge of my zipper pocket, so it's all closed up now, and then we can just put it back inside, pushing down those edges. Okay, beautiful. All right, so now we have done the back, we need to do the front. So I'm just going to zip those up just to make it a little bit easier, and then this is why I didn't bother shaping it too much earlier, because we're kind of going to squish it and do the exact same thing. This side will be a little bit more tricky because you are dealing with more bulk, so take your time with it. There is no need to rush with this. So we're going to get our exterior front panel and pop it right sides together with our gusset, matching up those center points. So the process of this is the same. We're going to do the exterior panels first and baste, then we'll do the lining and sew, and then turn it out. So there's no surprises here whatsoever, and no need to be nervous, because together we will do this. It is fine. All right, so same as before. You're going to go around and you're going to clip the entire thing. You can snip into the corners where you need to, so I'll do that now. Just little snips. Even if it's like 1/8 of an inch, it just really helps open out those corners to fit it all in nicely. Okay. All right, so go ahead, clip all the way around, go ahead and baste. Then come back and I'll give you a reminder of what we need to do with the lining. Alright, there's the exterior basted together, and now we just have to tackle this final lining. So undo your zipper pocket again, make sure that's undone, and then you're going to have to really squish this bag, I'm sorry to say. So if you took your time to turn it out nicely before, probably wasted your time. So we're going to have to really squish it down, because we need to get everything in between these two layers. So popping your lining right side down. So linings are right side down together. I'll probably put a couple of clips on, because even though as strong as my clips are, I'm not sure they'll hold with just one. And then down, squish, right sides together, and clip around. So you'll be fine, it will be fine. We just need to take our time with the clipping. It is a lot of bulk, because you're dealing pretty much with the entirety of the bag in between these layers now. But as you go around, just sort of push it, squish it, make sure that, especially at the bottom corners of your gusset, that there's no folds in there. Just sort of feel with your fingers. If you feel there's a fold, just pinch it and push it out, and then use your clip almost at the full seam allowance, sort of to push that fold outwards. I like to use heaps of clips when we get to this sort of stage, and you're just almost stitching, you know, a couple of stitches at a time just to get around this. Alright, I won't bore you too much. Clip around it, take your time, clip around it, baste. I probably actually will baste this time, and then we sew with our 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around. Go ahead and do that, and I'll check in with you after we do it. All right, we have sewn around and I've trimmed my seams all the way around, and now we need to turn it out. So same process again, we're going to go through that zipper pocket and we are going to take our time. I'm not going to show you the struggle that will inevitably follow. I don't think it's going to be too bad, but I seem to make things look really hard. So go ahead, turn it out through the zipper pocket, take your time, and then check back here. All right, we have turned it out. Now before our big reveal, let's finish off our last bit, which is this zipper pocket. Same process as before. Fold your seam allowance in, both sides. Meet it up along that top edge. And then just keep following it along, keep clipping all the way to the other end. So we want to make sure it's nice and even. And again, that you have enough fabric to really catch with that needle. Last thing we want to do is have to unpick it because we haven't caught both sides. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then we will have a look at our finished bags. There's my zipper pocket done. Let's push it back inside the backpack. Just push it down in there. Try and push those corners right down as well. I'm just going to go out of frame for a moment while I do that. Give it a final shape. And then have a look at your beautiful and now finished Keanu bag. There we go. So this, like I mentioned earlier, is the add-on version, so it doesn't have that laptop pocket, but it is amazing for one of those bags that just fits what you need for a day out. That'll fit everything you need, and I love the shape. I love that shape of the zipper. It's different. It's not square. It's got some character to it, and it just looks really good. I'm so happy with that. I love that front pocket too. Really happy with my fabric choices. I'm glad I went with that diamond embossed canvas just to add a bit of texture. And that pleat, it just gives it a bit of character. All right, well, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed sewing that. Couple of different techniques with that, the way that we structured it at the end. So doing a birthing method for a backpack isn't overly common, and it was really quite fun. All right, okay. So we are done with our Keanu bag. Thank you to UhOh Creations for a wonderful bag. Now, another note, if you didn't finish off the ends of your straps, now's the time, obviously, if you want to be able to wear it. But now is the time. Take it out, go out, enjoy the new bag, because it is a great one. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help me keep making these videos. And I'm looking forward to the next one. All right, happy sewing.